Hey all, Issa with Journey to Programming here. If you saw the last video I posted, it was early on. Oh, let me rephrase. Early on in the video, I mentioned that the video was supposed to be about talking about software engineering in 2022. I kind of went on a tangent during that video, and I just told you guys about my story, gave you a little bit of context on what I've been up to, and I really use that as just a way to discuss what is the whole point of Journey to Programming, what is my background, why am I even sharing. So I'm going to focus this one on software engineering in 2022. Let's go ahead and dive right in, all right? So, software engineering in 2022, what does a landscape look like? I'm an engineering manager. I am an engineering manager at Meta right now, and I've been at Meta for almost 3 years, a little bit less, and for 2 of those years, I was a engineer. So I've got some context on this at a uh, large tech kind of social media company level, right? Or a FANG company, if you're following the old acronyms. And before this, I've got about 10 years of experience as either a software engineer or running a business as a software developer or consultant, or I contracted as an engineer basically on various projects where I got to ramp up my own team and my own company, and we subcontracted and developed software for various interactive experiences and such. So that's my background. So jumping into the topic of software engineering in 2022, what does the landscape look like right now? Are there jobs and how do you get in? I think those are major questions that let's go ahead and begin approaching. So, what does the landscape look like right now? What are the main languages being used? I honestly think that this is a great, really general question, which all of us should think about frequently because uh, the languages are shifting, they're changing frequently. Every company kind of changes things too, depending on if you're in big tech or if you're in kind of mid-sized businesses or you're in a startup. And really, the landscape is there's more and more jobs available, right? So, more companies are understanding that there is software that needs to get updated, new stuff needs to be developed, features need to be improved, bugs need to be cleaned up. And with that, teams are ramping up. They're ramping up quickly. I know right now in this current economy, we are seeing a little bit of news around maybe the expectations at big tech are a little bit stricter right now. But to be 100% honest, I think that's a lot more media presenting it that way. I think the expectations have always been high. And if you're looking to get into big tech, I think you should generally be thinking of it being a great learning opportunity, but it's a job too. So I'm not trying to say you have to be perfect and work 80-hour weeks, but at the same time, you should expect you're going into a big tech job that comes with a big tech salary, and there are going to be high expectations in order for you to earn that. So that is a really rough landscape discussion. But now across the board for jobs, we're seeing a lot more available. Everyone's looking for software developers. I think there's a competition to hire people right now, and there's just not enough engineers and not enough that are really capable of jumping into a team and being able to go right out the box, right? A lot of the times you're getting folks that need ramp up time. And what does that mean? It means that you need good tech leads. It means you need great managers to support them. And then it means you need to have a core structure at that company to help facilitate this learning. And because of that requirement, that's a lot in the industry. I think that's creating a kind of an atmosphere in some companies which becomes difficult on engineers or software developers, right? And I'm just making that clear. Although there's a lot of jobs, there's a lot of companies that are not ready for basically engineers to jump in and have a normal work-life balance. They think you're going to come in and be able to hit the ground running immediately. Maybe you will, maybe you won't, but almost all of us require some ramp-up period when you first join. So, anyways, I think across the board, small companies, mid-sized companies, everybody's looking for jobs. If you're looking at salaries, and that's something you're wondering about 2022, I think salaries have not dropped at all. I think across the board, they are around the same. Even with inflation, they've gone up. If you're really looking to stay ahead of inflation, the age old rule of job hopping every few years is probably tried and true. I've done that in the past. I kind of grew out of that. Just my opinion. I enjoy where I'm at now, and I'm not really looking to make a change. But that is a very true kind of age old way of thinking about salary growth. So if you want to jump your salary up, sometimes internal promotions aren't the fastest way. But across the board, we are seeing salaries for starting at a company going up. They haven't gone down. Again, expectations I think are higher across the board, and we're seeing more jobs at companies, like I said, that are not necessarily ready for a developer to come in. They're expecting developers that are senior, but they're paying them at junior prices, and they're expecting that junior person to know how to do everything out of the box. So just food for thought. So now along like the coming out of college, if you're a fresher, if you're coming out of college and you're looking for a new hire job, the range of starting salaries really changes depending on if you're going big tech, if you're going to small, if you're going to DoD, if you're going to silicon, you're going to hardware, etc. If you're going to a small company, I've seen most of them, unless it's a small web agency that's got some crazy successful high margins and they've got a lot of business in the pipe. Usually you're looking at anywhere between offers for 40,000 to 65,000. I'd say that's pretty normal. And in DoD, I'm pretty sure that's where a lot of them are outside of the really high cost of living areas. If you're in Southern California, you might see a little bit higher than that at the DoD companies, but that's really dependent on the location. Now, going into hardware and silicon, usually I'd say it's a little bit higher, and I'm guesstimating off the top of my head right now. So I'm thinking that salaries in those industries are probably around starting 60-ish to 90-ish. If you're a really good candidate, maybe you did an internship, maybe you're at the high end. If you're coming out of college and you're really fresh, they'll probably start you kind of low, mid, unless you're a really great candidate, have good qualifications, right? And I'd say that's excuse me, I'd say that's probably across the board. You're looking at that probably on the West Coast and the high cost of living areas, as well as kind of central. Maybe you'll take a little bit of a hit. You'll look at like 50K to about 75, 80K if you're in the lower cost of living cities or the mid cost of living cities, right? And I'd say those are probably like Texas, if you're going to Dallas, if you're going to Austin, although Austin's pretty darn expensive now. If you're going to Chicago, if you're going to states like that, or cities like that, I think those are like your mid cost of living in comparison to, for example, Los Angeles, San Diego, San Fran, the Bay Area, New York, Boston. Those are really going to be your really high cost of living areas in comparison. So then when you start thinking about if you're mid-career, if you've got a few years of experience, depending on what your specialty is, I'd say you could definitely pull somewhere between 85 to like 120 minimum. And that's if you find the right job and if you fight for that salary. I think that's pretty normal unless you're at a small company that just can't afford it. And I actually just realized I skipped one of the kind of classes coming out of college. So if you're coming out of college and you're looking to go big tech, if you're looking to land at Microsoft, if you're looking to land at Google, actually I'm going to take Microsoft. No, okay, I'll keep Microsoft in there. If you're looking to go to Meta, Apple, TikTok, etc., those types of companies, Netflix, Snap. A lot of the times you're coming out of college and you're getting a really nice offer for somebody coming out of college. It's kind of crazy in my opinion. And I look back on it and had I known that's what offers people get, or a little bit wiser at the time, I probably would have worked my rear end off training more for the interviews and leak coding, although leak code really wasn't a thing at that time. But I would have practiced more. That's what I'm saying. Nevertheless, I'd say a lot of the times you're coming into those companies in the big tech world around a base salary of anywhere between 100 to 150, and then you've got the additional incentives, right? You've got a bonus tied to that annually. You've got potentially a signing bonus when you join, and then you've usually got some sort of stock incentive which is like equity as RSUs, right? So those are really the big differences in those three kind of levels. You come out of college, small company, doesn't necessarily have a ton of business. I said like 40-ish to maybe 65-ish. You go DoD, probably around that range too. Unless you're in high cost of living, it might go up to 80-ish. And then if you go into hardware, I think it's usually around 50 to 80-ish, something like that. So big tech, like I said, your base 1 to 150, and then bonus and RSU, it's insane. But again, each one has different expectations. Don't feel pressured to do big tech. Don't feel pressured to do a big hardware company. Don't feel pressured to go to Qualcomm first or some big name like Samsung. Instead, find out where you're comfortable. If you've trained and you can get in there, take the shot. There's nothing wrong with it. But if you, for example, haven't prepared, you don't feel confident going in there, feel free to take a job at a smaller company. Go to DoD, where, in my opinion, everything develops a little bit more slowly, and their expectations are a little bit more in line with, hey, if somebody's junior or entry level, we don't expect them to be writing a full end-to-end software with back end, front end, and making it scalable for the long term, right? Um, just food for thought. Again, you guys handle that the way you want. Lastly, I think I was mentioning, if you've got a few years of experience, I'd say early on in your career, right now in 2022, I'd say it's pretty easy to job hop. I'm not doing it myself. Again, I'm just not interested. I did it when I was younger. I don't really have that, let's say, desire to move to new companies every few years just for a salary bump. But I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing to do, especially early in your career. Not necessarily for the salary bump, mainly so that you get the experience in different companies and doing different things and working with different teams. This is especially true if you go to either a small company, which has you doing like one thing the whole time, or if you go to a really big tech company where you're working with very proprietary tech and they're not moving you around or giving you the opportunity to explore other languages, other stacks, other technologies. Then those are the cases where I definitely recommend take the chance, jump somewhere else if you are willing. A lot of companies will also work with you. For example, if you're working in a company for a few years and you've got a good relationship with them, they may not have a problem with you leaving and trying a new company for 6 months or a year. They might actually let you back if they still have headcount or if they still have resources to bring you back, or if maybe they couldn't fill your position. So those are always discussions you could have. So now that kind of covers that mid few years of experience. Now, if you've got a lot of experience, I don't think you're going to be watching this video. If you are watching and you want to discuss that, feel free to chime in, ping me. You can reach me directly. I think my email is still out there, or I'll add it in here at some point. Or just submit a comment directly on this video, and I'm happy to discuss, right? The other thing that I wanted to touch on, as I mentioned in the beginning of the video, like 3 kind of core pillars or points that I want to talk about for the SWE landscape in 2022, right? So where is this going, and what is the, let's say, the opportunity looking like overall? I'd say we're probably going to continue seeing growth and more need for good developers that are interested in developing, let's say, infra, scalable technology, etc. Now, also, you're probably going to see a rise, which I think we've always had this, in the need for people that can support antiquated technology. So there's a lot of companies that support old servers, old databases, and just older languages and tech, and that requires a special skill set to do. So if you're into learning that, if you're interested, there's definitely that landscape to look at too. And then on the horizon for tech to learn, languages, etc. The web stacks are all super popular. There's nothing wrong with picking up JavaScript. There's nothing wrong with picking up something like React or PHP. There's a lot of newer languages that have a lot more support nowadays than they did a decade ago. So look into that. If you're interested in Python, go into it. If you're interested in learning game dev, learn C++, learn C#, practice with the game engines. You don't need to just do it in the dark. If you're trying to understand shaders, definitely go towards C++. So that's definitely my recommendation. I think now that we're kind of coming to a few years of COVID, it's been with us, it is with us still. It will be with us in another year. People are vaccinated. A lot of people are. I think because of that, we're going to see this need and the pickup of software engineers across the board. I think the big tech companies right now have paused or slowed down hiring slightly while we get through this recession period. The economy needs to kind of adjust and rebalance. But as we push forward through this, I think we're probably looking towards the end of the year, a ramp up, or maybe next year, I'd say. And that makes for a very good opportunity for you to begin developing your skills right now. And how do you do that? If you're entry level, or if you're maybe working at a smaller company, you are preparing for big company interviews, it's the same process. You've got to practice the generic coding interview problems. I know it's like I'm a broken record. If you've watched my old videos, you've got Elite Code. Check out Cracking the Coding Interview. Watch YouTube videos. There's so many people that put out excellent videos discussing how to solve various leak code problems, or they actually break it down into step by step, and they explain data structures, and they explain different algorithms. All of that's super important when you get to the interview process, especially in big tech, where they follow that process. At mid-sized and smaller companies, really you need to begin looking into how do they actually interview? What's their process? Are they doing like a take-home programming quiz? Do they just have you do one on your own time? Are they going to have you come in and do like a project? Those are all different when it comes to the smaller and mid-sized companies. Definitely talk to whoever the recruiter is there. See if they can give you some tips. Those are valid questions to ask always. So again, I think the landscape's going to continue picking up. There's definitely a need. I think one big thing I should mention here is I think we probably have a lack of great, experienced, empathetic leaders across the board in tech. And I think it has to do with a few different things. We've got a lot of leaders that are really, really big names, right? Those are the leaders that have started these huge tech companies. Let's say Elon, let's say Zuckerberg, let's say Bezos, those really big names, right? They are great examples of people that have begun companies, but they're really, really rare cases. I'm talking about people at the kind of ground level, the people leading engineering teams, the tech leads, basically a senior engineer who has knowledge of not just languages and how to implement, but also has a sense of how do people work together? How do they guide a team to be kind of more cohesive, communicative, and how do they mesh in a way which drives towards a larger goal, right? So again, I'm saying like a tech lead, I'm saying managers. Again, this is something where I think we're going to see a big lack, especially as we begin transitioning into this next period where, as I mentioned earlier, a lot of companies are starting to see you need more developers. And we're seeing new agencies pick up. We're seeing large tech firms at scale. And it's just going to become a bigger topic as we begin discussing things like AI in everything you do, right? And when I say AI, I'm not saying your coffee maker is going to begin speaking to you and having a conversation. What I'm saying is maybe we're going to have some sort of basically supervised learning models that will determine when do you normally wake up on X day of the week. I can learn from that, and then I can propose that maybe this is a good time to begin heating up your coffee, right? And we're going to need developers to develop these training models and get the data. We're going to need more data across the board. We're looking at autonomous vehicles, although there's a lot of news about whether or not that's going to happen anytime soon, if the government's going to allow it. We're looking at the need for AI in healthcare. We're looking at things that allow you to be more hands-off with technology. Look at AR glasses, look at VR, look at the ability to talk to Alexa or Google and an assistant, right? If you look at the assistants from 5 years ago, if you look at them from 2 years ago, the improvement is massive. And there's going to be a huge pickup there. If you watch people talk about the idea of Alexa skills, That's something that's going to become, I think, ubiquitous in the next 5 to 10 years. And every company, every business is going to need to get picked up in some way. We need developers to train this, to figure out how to scale these models across the board, right? And that's just food for thought. So there's so much that's potentially going to be coming down the line. Again, just a quick talk. I know that was a lot. Just musings in my mind. I'm sharing with you guys. Again, this is Isa with Journey to Programming. I'm going to end it there. I really do appreciate you guys watching these videos. I appreciate you subscribing. If you have any feedback, comments, you want to discuss anything, always feel free to post it here. And I look forward to making more videos for you guys, right? So I'm actually super stoked. I actually just sat here and did this. It's been kind of difficult to do it. Here it is. Have a good one, you guys.